I'm back again. I just want to talk about babies who fall asleep when your baby falls asleep in your arms. And a lot of women, they call me, they're breastfeeding, they get the baby, or by the way, this is my doll, so they get the baby all nice and cozy on the breast or the bottle, and they fall asleep in their arms. And this is in the daytime. I'm not talking about night, because we expect you to feed your baby and put your baby down. But what they do is they feed their baby in the day and put their baby to sleep in the day like that. And what they don't understand is that if every time you feed your baby, put your baby down in the crib or whatever, what you're doing is your baby is only ever used to going down, being fed to sleep. So how do I get my clients to get into a good routine? And I don't even call it a routine, it's just good sleeping habits. So in the daytime, your baby's woke up for the day, let's say 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, whatever time your baby is starting their day. You're going to feed your baby, make sure your baby's well fed. So if you're breastfeeding, feed, I always say feed, burp, put them back on the breast again. This time they're not going to be that easy to burp. So you might want to change the nappy midway. Now people will say, I want to change the nappy before. Honestly, it's pointless, because if you're breastfeeding, more than likely a breastfed baby will poo either mid-feed or at the end of the feed. So what I always say is mid-feed, when you've done, you now need a second burp, they're not so easy to burp on the breast. So what you might need to do is change the nappy, they'll wriggle about a bit, then you pick them up, give them a good burp, put them back on the breast for the third time. Stick to one breast, one feed. Okay, so you're going to start your day. Now your baby might, in the beginning, it's almost like they feed, sleep. But when they get to about 2-3 weeks old, and that also depends on the baby and the size, they start to be a little bit more alert in the day. So when your baby starts to show they're more alert, you're going to maybe put, you can even just sit with them on the sofa next to you and, talk to them. And, by the time you've done your feed, especially if you're breastfeeding, that could be all of 40 minutes with the nappy change and all the rest of it. And you might sit, they might lie on their back and see you for a minute. This is a time to talk to them. This is the time to pick them up and cuddle them and look at them and interact with them. They're not going to be awake for long. And by the time you finish, you'd be like, well, where's the time gone? So say, for instance, they might be awake for about an hour and a half. And when I say awake, that includes the feed time. So imagine they woke up at 7 and by 8:30, they're now tired again. You'll put them down, and it might be they only manage an hour. You put them down. You put them in the bed. You don't go and feed them again. And this is a problem. So most women think, oh, I've got to feed them because I need to make sure they're asleep, and and then ends up either holding them till they're fast asleep and slowly putting them down. No, you don't need to do that. You just need to put them down. And then when they wake up, and hopefully they'll sleep an hour and a half, they're going to wake up, and that will also determine how often your babies are going to feed in the beginning. So imagine you've been awake an hour and a half, they sleep maybe an hour and a half, but they might only sleep an hour. Then guess what? They're going to wake up and you're going to feed them. Now, we don't want to try and get into snacking scenarios. So if they literally couldn't go into the sleep cycle and they only did 30 minutes, we certainly don't want to feed every 2 hours if we can help it. So you want at least 2.5 to 3 hours, and preferably 3. And so when you pick them up and feed them, again, you repeat the cycle of them being awake. This way, imagine in the nighttime, they go to bed and they sort of stir. They don't necessarily feel that they've got to be fed to go back to sleep again. They might, if they're hungry, then of course they're going to wake up and they're going to want to be fed. But it stops this idea that the only way to go to sleep is by being fed to sleep. So often when I get sleep training requests, it's because a mom has always literally fed their baby and put their baby down with a feed, whether it be bottle or breast. So what I always say to them, right, it's hard, but you start in the day, because the daytime is the key actually to a good night's sleep. So I explained to them what to do. I said, when you wake up tomorrow morning, make sure you do a feed and make sure they stay awake before you put them down, then, an hour and a half awake or whatever, and then put them down and don't feed them. How am I going to do that? I said, well, in the beginning, okay, I know you've got used to them sleeping, being fed to sleep. And if it, worst case scenario, then just hold them to sleep. That I don't mind for the first couple of days, but don't feed them to sleep. That's important. Put them down because you want them to be hungry when they wake up. And so this is where also another problem is. Like, I had a lady the other day and she said, my baby doesn't hardly go to sleep. I said, that's impossible. She said, no. Honestly, she goes down for half an hour. I said, no, what she's doing is, I saw straight away, she's sleeping, she's catnapping on your breast. So therefore, she doesn't really need to sleep like you might think, because at the end of the day, she'll just keep catnapping on your breast. Because what you keep doing is feeding. You think, oh, she must be hungry, feed. But while she's feeding, she's sort of half asleep. So therefore, she's surviving on this catnapping. So honestly, if you are in this kind of problem, tomorrow morning, you get your baby up, you feed your baby, make sure you feed your baby well. Put your baby down when it's ready for sleep without food. And even if you have to rock your baby to sleep, I'd rather you do that than feed your baby. We need your child in the day to get used to waking up to a feed. Therefore, the only feed you go to sleep on is the last feed of the day when you're doing the bedtime routine. So in your 12-hour day, you're being fed on waking. And when it goes to going to bed, so for, say 7 o'clock at night, you're putting your baby to bed, you're going to feed your baby and you're going to put your baby to bed. However, in fact, I must post that if I can find the video. It was quite a funny video. This woman was like, my baby doesn't go down. And anyway, I was there. And I saw her feeding the baby and I could see she was hanging on to the baby. I'm like, put the baby down. She said, no, she won't. And she showed me all this video of her crying. And in fact, she sent me the video, said I could post it and everything. But it's funny because we put the baby down. She made a couple of moans and went to sleep. She said, but she never does that. She takes hours to go to sleep. I said, no, you've held her that much that they get cozy. They get cozy in your arms. So, of course, they're all warm here. Then you suddenly put them down flat on the back and all of this is exposed. And now they're cold. And now they've got to sort of snuggle into the bed. It's like you and I. If I go to bed, my husband always complains because I've got a thing about having a feather pillow and I've got to have two and I've got to have it in a certain way. And he's like, okay, he always says, do your dance. And so I puff up the pillows and I do all of that. And then I put them down and then I know I can go to sleep. So, okay, your baby can't pick things up, but they need to move. They need to make some sort of noise. And I don't mean crying, I don't mean screaming, but they might go, and all that, and they'll go to sleep. So please allow your baby to self-soothe from very early on, because if you do that, you're not going to have any problems. You're not going to have any problems. The only problem you're going to have is if your baby happens to have silent reflux, and then, you know what? Deal with the root cause. Don't create habits. Deal with the root cause. Don't think it's going to go away. If your baby's got an intolerance to milk, it doesn't go away. Oh, the stomach will cope with it later on. No, it doesn't. Believe me. Believe me. If there's a problem, there's going to be a problem. Yeah. Later on down the line, maybe when they're a year and they're having real milk, real cow's milk that hasn't been, mind you, please don't even get me started on real milk, because the other day I went to somebody's house and I couldn't believe the sell-by date for milk. What is in there? Come on. And so you do have to wonder what they do put in formula. So yes, please let your baby self-soothe. Okay, so hopefully I'll do some more topics and hopefully by the end of the week, I'll start to do some live. Thank you.